As we took our excursion through various parts of Europe learning about war and genocide, we have found that displacement is the main way of survival for children during these rough times. Our first stop was Weimar, Germany, where the Buchenwald concentration camp from the Holocaust was located. Buchenwald in Weimar, Germany, was a concentration camp run by the SS. It was one of the cruelest, deadliest camps to be in operation during World War II. Buchenwald was a training camp for those Aryan men and boys who wished to become part of the SS or the Skull SS, an elite version of the SS. They were trained to be brutal and cruel. If they showed any form of sympathy, they were not allowed to become SS and were sent to fight the war in the front lines. Many of the men did not want to fight in the front lines, and so they were more willing to be brutal towards the prisoners. Buchenwald was a camp meant for only about 8,000 prisoners, but as the war went on, it became more crowded. When the camp was liberated in 1945, there were over 20,000 prisoners, both men and children, living in the camp. It was a labor camp for men and children where the children and men were killed if it was determined that they were unuseful because they were only seen as extra mouths to feed. The work at the camp was meant to wear the prisoners down until it killed them or became too sick to work. When they became sick, they were killed because they became a waste of space and food. The prisoners continued to have a heart and a conscience because they did their best to care for the children and ensure that they survived. The prisoners would provide a school of sorts to teach the children how to do tasks that would be necessary for them to be considered useful by the SS. By teaching them these skills, they were able to pass the selection a little bit longer and have more of a chance to survive until the end of the war. While learning about the Holocaust and how the children struggled to survive, we were led to the question of whether such a tragedy could happen again. This led us to the genocide from the Bosnian War. The Bosnian War took place between April 1992 and December 1995 as a result of Bosnia and Croatia declaring independence from Yugoslavia. The Bosnian Serbs were opposed to this decision and wanted to secure more Serbian territory. However, Bosnia was such a multi-ethnic country that consisted of 44% Muslim Bosniaks, 31% Orthodox Serbs, and 17% Catholic Croats. When the Serbs, who were supported by the Serbian Army and the Yugoslavian Army, also known as the JNA, entered their forces in Bosnia, war broke out with ruthless fighting, ethnic cleansing of Bosnian Muslims, and systematic mass rape. Unfortunately, the children in Bosnia, and especially Sarajevo, also found themselves in the middle of war. With random sniper shootings and shell bombings, innocent children were severely injured or lost their lives. However, many families made a decision to separate from their children in hopes that their lives would be saved. After spending a few days with Vjeko Sage, who is a local Bosnian and former UN worker, he told us a little bit about how he chose to send his daughter, who was 13 at the time, to go live with some family in Austria. She had to travel through the most dangerous parts by herself through an underground tunnel and risk her life to get outside the city of Sarajevo. He chose to send her out of the city in 1994 because he thought it was the only way she was going to have a future with no end to the war in sight. When Vjeko sent his daughter through the tunnel, he thought that he might never get to see her again because the conditions were so dangerous. The book, Goodbye Sarajevo, by Atka Reed and Hannah Schofield, is a book about a family going through the war with some separation. Atka is the oldest of 10 siblings who had to send off 2 of her younger sisters and care for the rest of her younger brothers and sisters. Atka sent her 2 younger sisters on a bus out of Sarajevo, not knowing if they would make it out or where they would end up. She did it anyways because she wanted them to at least have a chance of survival, even if none of the others would. Children in this situation were forced to mature much faster and take on responsibilities that children of their age usually do not have. The loss of childhood is just one of the many sufferings children must face when going through a war. The difficulties that Vieko's daughter and Adka Reed went through are prime examples of how genocide reoccurred after the Holocaust. Although executed in a different way, many of these children in Bosnia suffered. After visiting the city of Sarajevo and learning about the Bosnian War, we have found that genocide has taken place again after the Holocaust in 1992 through 1995. Now there is concern about whether another form of displacement is occurring which is inhabiting children's survival and future. It is taking center stage in Berlin, Germany. Within the streets of Berlin, Germany, there is a movement occurring. It is a movement to help improve the lives of middle and high school aged children. The movement is called Gangway, and it is run by social workers who want to help the children survive and thrive into the future. The social workers are doing something different than those in the Philadelphia area. They are going out onto the street into these teens' neighborhoods to approach them and see if they want any help with anything. Anything at all, whether it be help with school, family, work, and friends, or help achieving their dreams. They approach the teens and ask if they need help with any of these things, and if they say no, the worker leaves their card and walks away. They do not want to push, especially because they are invading their space by coming into the neighborhood, but they leave the option open to call them anyway. By stepping back and allowing the kids to approach them, they are able to make a better connection with the teens, and the teens are generally more willing to work for whatever they want. These personal connections allow the social workers of Gangway to help improve the teens' future and give them a better chance at a better future they could otherwise hope for. We believe that although unnecessary displacement of children from war and genocide can be prevented, the likelihood of it occurring again is high because not enough people are working to prevent it.